as someone that's in Memphis, I've seen them up close and personal, under Kelvin Sampson every single year. And every single year, it's been a real standard of excellence. Well, they moved to the Big 12, and everybody kind of wondered, obviously we didn't expect it to look like it looked in the AAC, where it was just like, okay, you're going to beat up on everybody not named Memphis every single year. But, they're 1-2. And I don't know if they've ever been 1-2 under Kelvin Sampson in conference play. Is this something that you think with them stabilizes over the course of the season, or is there really something to be said to where they're stepping up in competition and it's going to simply look different for them now that they are in the Big 12?
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both. Certainly winning on the road in the Big 12 is really hard for any team, even Kansas. They just lost to UCF. So there's some stuff to get used to there. Houston hasn't been to a lot of these venues very often, so there's some newness to it. But I think they get back. I think they're going to finish top 3 in the league. Going to Iowa State, nobody wins at Iowa State, and Houston got down 14-0 and still almost won that game. At TCU, TCU looks great this season. So I don't think those are bad losses whatsoever, and they barely lost those games. So I fully expect Houston to get back towards the winning side of the coin and again, finish towards the top of the conference. I love Kelvin Sampson. He can do no wrong in my eyes.
But anytime you start to have a conversation about Purdue, right, and Zach Edey, and there you go, the odds are up. They're 8-1. They're the favorites. Inevitably, you just get back to that same, conversation, which is I don't trust this team in March, and they will have the Player of the Year and the best player in the country in Zach Edey, who impacts a game like few others in college basketball. And they will get to March, and their guards will not be good enough. That is what I believe about Purdue. So, Trista, we're putting Purdue, they're going to win the Big Ten again. They're going to do all the things they do, but they're a catfish for me because we're talking about winning a championship, right? In the end, what really dictates that if that happens or not is do you have like the guards? And I just simply do not think they have the guard play to get this done. So, for me, they are a catfish.
I think so too. I call them Purdue. I'd rather call them Purdue than Purdue. This is just a team that I've seen multiple years now, and I know that they're different. Zach Edey's lost weight. He looks more svelte. He looks like he's improved his footwork. He's definitely a more mobile big, which is probably the reason that a lot of NBA scouts think he's going to be maybe a lottery pick. But the truth of the matter is, I still think that Zach Edey can be played off the floor in March Madness. In March, I think he's still going to be a liability. You're going to be able to get up and down, and he's still slow. I see him running back at the end of the pack in transition. But now this Siakam thing looks like Siakam's not going to give anyone assurances of extending. He's testing free agency with everyone but Toronto. Do you think there's a reality, a scenario that exists where Masai's going to lose him for nothing too?
So it's a great question, and it's well-timed for me because I was making some calls today, and a Western Conference executive who's really close involved in a front office that's active, right, that's trying to get people, told me that Siakam is letting anybody who will listen know he will not stay, do not sign him, because he wants to stick around so it doesn't impact his ability for a massive, massive deal, right, with All-NBA and some of those things. And so to answer your question, yeah, I think Toronto is in a really tough spot because it sounds like Siakam's plan is to not be traded and to just go into this thing, have an utter and total freedom, and to capitalize and maximize the mega amount of money that he's able to make. And obviously, if you're that organization, you are in a rebuild. You have to, I think, move on from that player. He's not going to be there, but the price is driven down, and he may move, but it's going to be for a team that just does it as a rental because there's a risk he won't sign, and obviously rentals bring back a lot less in return than someone who's willing to stick around.
We're talking to Bill Ryder, NBA insider for CBS Sports Radio. I want to go back to Memphis really quickly because I think they have a very intriguing situation developing. You look at them on paper, and obviously this season is lost. with Ja having the shoulder surgery and Desmond Bane's out for the next 6 weeks. But this core, which I think most in NBA circles would agree of Ja, Jaren, and Desmond Bane, is among the most promising. It's only played 103 games together. And Jaren's only got 2 years left on his very team-friendly contract after this one. And there are starting to be whispers about what this looks like. For a market like Memphis, I mean, isn't this just the cruelty of the NBA where you can draft well and you can nail it? I mean, you can get a guy like Bane at the end of the first and you can get lucky with Ja, but you got to have the injury on your luck on your side too, because those guys have only played 103 games together. It seems unfathomable, but it's true.
Yeah, no, and Jaren looked so good against the Warriors. It reminds me, to your point, of their bad luck of Sam Presti's first sort of compilation of a great young team in Oklahoma City that did make a finals with Durant, Harden, Westbrook, but couldn't keep them together. And obviously all of those guys eventually went their own way, and they couldn't get it. They couldn't get it to work. I'm from Iowa, went to school in Missouri, and I kept working south. And I lived in Little Rock for 2 years, so I spent a lot of time, no offense, Little Rock, in Memphis, because Memphis was fun. And so I got a soft place in my heart for that city. And I thought I'd be spending a lot of time there, traveling for conference finals and finals over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. And the injuries, and let's be frank, John Morant doing stuff he shouldn't have been doing, and cutting short his availability at times, right? Now here's the good news, and I think it's not all roses and rainbows and puppy dogs, but at least that locker room loves Ja Morant, right? That's not true for every star. And if Trae Young got suspended for some inappropriate behavior, it would be hard for him to go back to that Atlanta locker room and even be seen there.
Now that the offense and this coaching staff have realized, hey, this is a guy that should be getting 12 targets a game. Right now, he is your number one wide receiver. Treat him like one. He should be like anybody else you would have had as your number one, like in the past. I know he's not, Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson. Nobody's saying that. But in this offense right now, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, that should be the key. Rice should get, 12, 14 targets. Pacheco should get 20 to 25 touches. Kelce should get 10 targets. I mean, that is the formula for this team and why offensively they have started to look a little bit better in their game against Cincy in Miami. If there's still the question about this offense, it's no doubt in the red zone. That'll be, the story, I think, out of this game against Buffalo. If Kansas City is once again 1 of 4 in the red zone and they're kicking field goals, and you tell me the Chiefs lost, that I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. They still have struggled in the red zone for a variety of reasons, but they've been able to move the ball. It's just they have settled for field goals, and Harrison Butker kicks, fortunately, were good enough against the Dolphins, and I don't know if that's going to be good enough against Buffalo on Sunday night.
Going back to, last season, and maybe it is, Tom, as simple as Shane Steichen's not there anymore, but it just felt like Jalen specifically was not the same guy in Philly. Like, what's that conversation and what's that being attributed to in terms of it felt like he regressed in many ways?
Yeah, he did. And, Jalen didn't have a good season either, certainly the end of the season. Now, most of the focus has been on the coaching staff, and I think rightfully so. I think they made it really hard for him to do his job at a high level. But, I mean, fair or not, when you're getting paid the kind of money Jalen's getting paid, you're expected to be a guy who can overcome problems. You're expected to be a quarterback who can overcome X and O issues. And the bottom line is Jalen didn't do that. And I think when you look at what he is, that's something the Eagles need to reevaluate, where game manager is kind of a frowned upon term. But that's kind of what he is. He's a really good game manager. He's probably not the Burrow, the Mahomes, the kind of guy who can overcome all your issues. He's shown that if the things are right around him, he can be really successful. But the way this thing fell apart, yeah, a lot of it's on Sirianni. A lot of it's on Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator. But Jalen deserves his blame in this too, because ultimately he didn't make things any better either.